Hey there, business owners, directors, and marketeers. In today's show, I'm meeting Raphael Paulin-Daigle from SplitBase. I'm Lucas, your host as always, and I want to tell you a little bit about Paul and his business. Raphael, sorry, Raphael and his business. So, Raphael is the founder of SplitBase, the only e-commerce conversion optimization agency that specifically helps skincare, fashion, and lifestyle brands. So, it's a really interesting conversation with a very, very specialized conversion rate expert in today's episode. He also runs the Minds of E-commerce podcast, so another interesting podcast show that you guys definitely should check out, where he interviews some of the most successful e-commerce entrepreneurs on their top growth strategies, and like we do it here in Pathmark with very short, to the point episodes. So definitely head over to Raphael's podcast to learn more all about that. But without further ado, Raphael, I want to welcome you to the show.
Awesome. Well, thanks for inviting me, Lucas.
Really good. So tell us about SplitBase. What is it all about?
Yeah, so SplitBase is a conversion optimization agency for skincare, fashion, and lifestyle brands. So we really focus on understanding how people behave on the websites of our clients, how they think, and really get into the root of their emotions and what makes them buy or leave the website. And by really understanding that at a deep level, we're able to come up with test hypotheses and changes for the website that aren't just solving artificial problems, but that are solving deep problems, customers' wants, needs, questions. So that way we're able to increase conversions for our clients and generally get them an ROI of way over 10x, in some cases up to 700%. So yeah, that's what we do.
Very good, very good. So it's very interesting. You have a specific focus, as you mentioned, on skincare, fashion, and lifestyle brands. Like, maybe tell us a little bit, how did this focus come to be, and what makes this particular areas very, specifically interesting for conversion rate optimization?
Yeah, totally. Well, when I started with the agency, somehow at one point I realized that all the companies that we were working with were companies where price was not really an issue, where it wasn't like they weren't necessarily competing on price like so many companies. So we had a lot of skincare companies, deodorant companies, and other companies where at the end of the day, they were selling their products based on them being more natural, better quality, and not by being the cheapest. So that, became a really interesting thing to look at, because when we look at a lot of traditional conversion optimization tactics, or, things that bloggers love to put out there, but that aren't necessarily applicable to 90% of the e-commerce businesses out there, there's a lot of things based on scarcity and price and discounts and things like that. But at the end of the day, what we realized really made people buy for products such as, let's say, natural skincare products. It's really when we look at the customer and understanding that customer deeper, right? Like, no amount of fake scarcity is going to help them. You might get incremental improvements, small little things with tactics. Yeah. But when you really understand the customer and see what makes them tick, that's when you unlock a whole new world of possibilities.
Really good.
Yeah, and that's how we realize, at the end of the day, hey, most of our clients are really selling on their benefits and the value that they provide and their differences compared to competitors. So why not specifically focus on that, on companies that where the emotional factor needs to be there? And since our methodology is heavily based on understanding emotions, it was just a perfect match.
Very cool. You just brought up the methodology there. Sort of ties perfectly into my next question, because I'm curious, like, how do you work together with those brands? Like, what is the sort of the methodology of collaboration? How should I imagine this?
Totally. Well, we have a chart. So picture a Venn diagram with 3 circles, right? So we have, we call this a testing trifecta. So the top bubble is testing or changes. That's what most companies do when they want to, increase conversions. They're going to sit around a table and they're going to brainstorm and they're going to come up with ideas on how to improve the website, and they're going to go and implement or launch a test and cross fingers hoping it works, right? The thing is that that's literally just like yeah, you're crossing your fingers and hoping it works. Like there's nothing more. So you want to have a predictable process to be able to achieve success and improve your website and conversions. So the next step, the other bubble in the Venn diagram is quantitative, right? So analytics. So that's what most companies do right now. They'll look at Google Analytics and they'll understand what's working and what's not working based on their Google Analytics. That's great, but look, numbers don't tell you everything. Numbers can tell you, where there's a problem, but it won't tell you what's the problem. Numbers can't give you words. So that's why we have the human factor, which is the third bubble. And that's where we really dive into the understanding the customer and all the qualitative research. What we do is that instead of just focusing on one of those bubbles like 90% of the companies, we have this whole process that assembles numbers and human factors. And we do our research and we follow that process where after that, we come to the client and we have, hey, we've done all this research. Here's a prioritized list of changes that you need to make on your website. Here's what needs to be tested. And then most of the time, then companies decide to work with us to also do all the testing. So our work is we're almost like a whole research arm for all of our clients, both quantitative and qualitative. We help them figure out problems in the business, how to make decisions, and then we help them figure out how to test that. For impact and for an increase in revenue.
Really good. Okay, so really sort of a three-dimensional approach that you were describing there.
Exactly.
Where you support your clients. Very interesting. I'm curious because we had quite some conversion rate experts on the show from different sort of like areas that they were focusing on. I'm curious, like in your specific verticals that you're focusing on, conversion rate optimization, is that a term? Is that an idea that is really spread across, or do you have to do a lot of educational work to sort of, plant these ideas within marketeers, sort of, prioritization?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really depends. If we look at fashion, for example, there's a lot more education that needs to be done. Generally it's an industry that's a little more behind when it comes to being innovative with e-commerce. It's, so definitely more challenges there. But then if we look at skincare products and cosmetics, there are a lot of direct to consumer e-commerce brands that are newer to the space, for example, that they know that what they want, right? They know they need to get those customer insights and increase conversions. So it's definitely more of a term. But yeah, if we look at luxury itself or fashion, definitely less. But at the end of the day, education is always needed, because what we've realized is that even though a lot of people know what CRO is, they have a very vague idea of what it should be. And a lot of people think that, hey, I'm going to start running tests on my website and all of a sudden I'm going to make more money. Whereas at the end of the day, no, it's really the opposite of what a lot of bloggers are putting out there, right? It's not about, changing the button color from red to blue. It's about digging deeper to understand why that person actually abandoned their cart. And maybe turns out it's because they were being charged shipping fees that were so high that they never bought, and you never knew that they were being charged that. Yep. Right? So these are like concrete examples. It's really about finding your blind spots.
Makes total.
And people don't see CRO that way very often.
Maybe a small follow-up question on this. What do you think why this is the case? Why does conversion rate optimization have such multifaceted sort of interpretations? And what do you think? What's your experience?
Yeah, I think the answer is pretty simple. It's and I'm not going to call out any names out there, but and we see less of it. But there was a time where CRO became like SEO-fied, where everyone is writing about the topic. And when I say everyone, it means all the marketing bloggers that have never done true conversion optimization, and they're just writing on the topic to get traffic to their own websites. So what we have is that we have a plethora of just rehearsed content that's literally just a blog based on 5 other blog articles that may not even be well researched, that are all based on the same 10 examples of one A/B test that Amazon did that people can't even relate to because it's super old. Amazon has the most more traffic than anyone else who would want to be testing. So you become where, like, when people start Googling about conversion optimization and they don't know where to start, they end up on these articles that, pardon my language, but are very often full of shit. So it's, it just creates a big challenge where we have to re-educate. And then on the customer side, right, or on the companies that do want to do CRO, then the big question is, who am I going to listen to? Who's right? Right. So that's definitely, I think, the challenge that we face today.
Very good. Very good. Okay. And who are the people in the companies that you usually would be working with? Is this marketeers? Is this more on a C-level suite? Where do you see there's most focus on conversion rate optimization?
Yeah, it really depends. We like making deep changes. So very often we work with the CEOs themselves, even though these are, can be $20 million companies. Even the Fortune 500 companies will work directly with the CMOs, and not necessarily someone, way further down. We've realized that CRO touches so many departments. It's about optimizing things. So sometimes it's going to be about optimizing some traffic channels. It's going to be about creating new landing pages. And sometimes it unlocks so many other things. Like one of our clients, based on our voice of customer research that we've done, and when they learned how their customers were describing their brand and the words that we were using, they decided to do a complete rebrand of their products that were sold in grocery stores and drugstores all around the country. Wow. So, sometimes you need a lot of people involved. So we like to work at the highest possible level so things get done.
Very good. Maybe one small sort of question on that. Could you tell us a brief insight into how you're engaging with the customers? Is this like qualitative interviews? Is this sort of contextual inquiries? Like, what would you be doing to get those insights?
Yeah, so we have a whole survey methodology. So we're going to send surveys, and I mean, very open-ended questions sometimes where people have to write their answers. I haven't heard a lot of it. I mean, I've never heard of another agency who does that. But for our clients that has physical retail stores, I actually wrote a blog post on this. We go in store and we interview the store managers and the employees because they face the customers all day long. Imagine the insights and the power that they have that someone sitting at the HQ in a completely different city will not have when they're building the website or doing the marketing.
Yep.
So, really going at the source of those insights, interviewing store managers, existing customers, people that are interested, people at every stage of the buying process, doing phone calls, user testing as well. There's a lot, right? But when you have the right methodology, you know exactly what to do when and how all of that really fits into one action.
Very cool. Very cool. So you've seen a lot of websites, specifically now recently in those particular verticals. Is there something that you could share with the listeners? Like, what are typical challenges or let's say maybe mistakes or improvement potentials that you see again and again? What are things that you come across quite often to be improved upon?
Totally. Well, one thing is, I would say the first thing is don't blindly follow web design trends. Very often, web design trends just lead people to make very stupid design decisions. And that is, for example, using a hamburger menu on desktop. To me, that's just completely terrible. People are always looking for the navigation bar when you're doing that. The goal of that bar was intended to make mobile navigation easier, not to hide navigation on desktop, right? So a lot of practices sometimes really think about how it's going to impact your users. Are people seeing the information they need to see right away? Do people understand what you're about, right? So that's one. Number two, I would say focus on the benefit that your product or service is providing the customer. Here's a mistake that people or companies are making. They're selling themselves. They're selling their product. Right? I'll use skincare because I think it's one of the best examples. If you're selling a moisturizing cream, you're not selling a moisturizing cream to the customer, and that's not what you should sell. What you're selling is an outcome, right? It means customers with dry skin, they're going to have a softer skin. They're going to have a better glow. Maybe it also helps with acne. So for people with acne, it means, more confidence, right? And we can go even further. It means they're more confident. They feel like they can go out. They feel more beautiful. And that is very powerful. Your moisturizing cream is just a bridge. It's just what's going to allow them to become that ideal version of themselves that they want to become. So don't sell your moisturizing cream, sell the benefit. And then the last thing I would say is talk to your customers. Like, too many people are just sitting behind their screens and they're not getting constant, continuous feedback from their customers. And the easiest way to do that is to set up an after-purchase poll. So after people buy from you, set it into Klaviyo or any other marketing software that you use, and make sure that there's an automated email that gets sent after people buy from you so they can leave you some feedback. Ask them specific questions and see what they have to say about their experience. And don't be afraid to pick up the phone so you can also learn more. It's just super, super valuable.
Really good. What you mentioned there, especially your second point, is I think what I've seen as a running theme by speaking to conversion rate optimization specialists, that for some reason, a lot of companies, prioritize what they think is important to them or for them and forget to really understand the actual relationship to be built up, the actual feelings, emotions that users have. My question now is, as a first exercise, what could people do that kind of feel, we have this issue on our website. We are not talking so much about their benefits, about them, and from their perspective. What would be a first couple of things they could be doing in your perspective?
In order to be able to talk about the benefits?
Exactly. In order to put themselves into the shoes of their visitor or the user and stop looking through their own glasses. Because if it would be so easy, everybody would be doing it.
Exactly. That's the third point that I said, right? Talk to your customers. So one question that we like to ask is, how did this product improve your life or change your life? Or how did it improve X, right? And then you just have like a big field where people can type their answers. Like, don't give them a multiple choice answers, because it's still what you think was the result and it's in your language. Let customers type. So many companies are afraid of that. And then you get to see the words that they use, and it'll reveal a lot of things that was in your complete blind spot. You completely ignored. Don't guess what the outcome is. I mean, you can guess it as a starting point, but really talk to customers who've already used your product and see how they talk about it, why they buy from you, why they like your product. And when you really understand that, you just have to look at those words and put it into your own wording. And that's how we approach it, at least at SplitBase.
Makes sense. Maybe a last question on sort of your experience by working with your clients is, there's tons of website metrics that you could look at, right? And they all could represent other elements of the user journey. What is a set of metrics that you usually would be definitely prioritizing when observing what's happening on a website?
Revenue per user would be number one. And the reason why I don't say conversion rate, because, unfortunately, this is called conversion rate optimization. I think conversion rate optimization is a very outdated term, because technically you're not optimizing just for the conversion rate, you're optimizing for whatever metric is best for your business, right? So we like to look at revenue per user, because let's say that, you slice your prices in half, your conversion rate might double, but you're not going to make as much money. Right. So are you a winner? No. If you've focused on increasing your conversion rate, but you cut your prices, you're still not a winner. You're losing money. So when we look at revenue per user, it also includes your average order value. So it's a great mix, and it's really representative generally of, the growth that you can be having and the success that you have. So that's definitely one of the main metrics we look at. Obviously, behind the scenes, then we still look at conversion rate and average order value, and we try to see correlations and understand, depending on the website and depending on the product or what we're optimizing for, then these may change. But generally, revenue per user, average order value, and conversion rate are definitely going to be some of the most important metrics. Now, maybe, there is a website where bounce rate is the reason why all the other metrics are low, right? Some websites have bounce problems. People are landing on the website and they're not being hooked, which maybe means you don't have a clear value proposition, or your value proposition doesn't articulate benefits. It only talks about some really vague statement, right? So yeah, that's revenue per user, I would say, is probably one of the most important ones you can look at.
Very cool. Okay, so since we are slowly coming to an end of this episode today, I want to ask you a little bit about more your personal experience as building up a business in that space. So if you would be zooming back, to the first days when you started SplitBase and all the experience that you collected, what would be an advice that you would give yourself, starting a business in conversion rate optimization?
Yeah. Creating more content on a more consistent basis. So now we've got it pretty much figured out. We've got the podcast, which is also on YouTube, on SoundCloud, all the podcasting platforms, and then we create blog posts out of that. And then it also fuels our newsletter and our social media posts. So we have a pretty rounded strategy now. But what I learned is conversion optimization is a very, very complicated thing to sell. It's not as tangible as, let's say, you do Facebook ads, or if you would do content marketing. The promise is always a little more vague, especially when you've got a lot of research that's being done. So the client really has to come to you. And to make that happen, you need to show that you're an expert at it, and that you know what you're doing, and you have to put out case studies. So I think more content on a consistent basis, would be the biggest advice I would give myself if I were to start over again.
Really cool, Raphael. Thank you so much for giving us this insights into, number one, your business, then the learnings that you had by working with various types of e-commerce business that you've been working, and now a little bit of an advice that you share with people that are sort of starting off or are in the middle of the journey. So thanks a lot for taking the time today to answer our questions and be part of the show. So thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Lucas.